Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the ColdFusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community.
Welcome to today's episode of the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm joined by Mr. Brad Worth. How you doing, Brad?
We're just trying to abbreviate stuff, take some letters out of the acronym, get the podcast over as soon as possible.
Who needs markup anyways? It's just the ColdFusion language.
Not like the ML really applies to most of what we type today.
It's all APIs. Okay. Well, we'd like to welcome you all here and give a special shout out to our sponsor, Ortus Solutions, the makers of ColdBox, CommandBox, ForgeBox, and Everything Box. Yes, that's right, everything.
Not FuseBox.
Not FuseBox. I guess, yeah. I missed those days. Skipped right over them, so. A few ways you can say thank you to Ortus Solutions. You can like and subscribe these videos here on YouTube. You can come join us over at CFCasts, where we produce the best ColdFusion training content. I'm a little biased because I helped produce that. Mm-hmm. And you can buy Ortus's book, 102 ColdBox Quick Tips and Tricks, over on Gumroad. Or you can join our wonderful Patreon supporters. We currently have 38 Patreon supporters. And between all of them, we are funding all of this podcast. And I know we have some additional goals now to fund the open source ForgeBox package repository. So we are 40% of the way on that. And now, if you'd like, especially as a business, you can get an annual membership, pay for the year, and save 10% and still get all the same perks. Okay, let's jump in to some of our news and events for this week. Keep here. There was a couple of community podcasts this week. I'm kind of used to us being the only name in town, so it was kind of fun to see this. The first one was Mike Brunt on a podcast called Music and Chat.
Yeah.
So this was the first time I'd heard of this show. Mike Brunt is a recognizable name in the ColdFusion world, and he talks about it on this podcast. I have not been able to see it yet, but they talked about...
He's got quite an epic beard in the podcast.
That is true.
I saw some talk about him having like a ZZ Top quality beard.
So it should be interesting. The description talks about how he got involved in software applications, becoming an expert with ColdFusion, and even said they will probably broach AI in the interview. So it sounds very interesting. Ooh. I know Mike spoke at different ColdFusion conferences as well, so you can go check that out over on YouTube.
2-hour-long podcast.
Yes, it's one of those links. I feel like podcasts are usually either like 20 minutes or 2 hours. Nothing in between.
Doesn't Joe Rogan get up for like 3 hours sometimes?
I have no idea. I can't do those that long.
Unless it's super interesting. Yeah, it's hard for me to keep my attention span that long. But
I know if we went that long, everybody here would boycott. Be quiet. Just tell us the news. All right, so we'll have that link, of course, in the show notes and here in the chat. That is Mike Brunt on Music and Chat. Next, there's some Java updates out there for both 8 and 11. Java, 11.0.12 and Java 8. I don't even know how you say their version numbers for Java 8, but 3.01.
I mean, it's like 1.8 build 3.01 or whatever. So I was just emailing with a client this morning about that, and they told me that Adobe had told him that they hadn't verified Java 11 update 12 yet, and he had to install Java 11 update 11 because it was the only one that was officially supported so far. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'll link to a article that Charlie wrote in the ColdFusion portal about these releases, and he points out that the Adobe installers do not have this latest update. They still have Java 11.0.11 and Java 8 291. So they are not up to date. You can update yours manually, and Charlie has a link in his post about how to do that. But yes, it is not in Adobe's official their Java installer offerings.
Interesting. Yeah, it looks like update 12 is still not on the Adopt OpenJDK API yet. Because when I run Java search command in command box, it still pulls back update 11 from April was the latest.
Oh, interesting.
Sure that they usually drop it just a few days after Oracle does, because they're running an open source variant. So interesting to see when that comes out.
Okay. In case you missed it, we had a webinar last Wednesday. Michael Bourne led us in building API integrations with Hyper. That is up on CFCasts already for free for anybody to view. You don't even need to sign up for an account to view it. And we will stick that over in the show notes and in the chat.
Ooh.
So it was a great session.
I didn't know the CFCasts had truly public content now.
It does. Completely public. We hope you sign up, but you don't have to. After you watch the session, you'll probably want to, though. That's how we get you.
Yeah, first one's free. I did not get a chance to watch it, but I kind of want to go back and watch it because it looked like it was going to be really fun.
Yeah. So Hyper, for those who haven't seen it or listened to this podcast, is a HTTP client library. Helps you build up an HTTP request in a way that's a little more portable and configurable than like CFHTTP. And one thing that it excels at is being able to create like sensible defaults and bundle them together, especially with Wirebox, and that making like an API client for interacting with GitHub, with Portainer, with choose your API of choice. So Michael walks us through all that in his webinar. It was really great. I'm glad we have it recorded too up on CFCasts. Okay. We had one more community podcast / YouTube show. I don't know what to call these anymore when they're both. It's called ColdFusion Today and Tomorrow, a Conversation, which is a great title. This was led by Mark Takata, who is Adobe's technical evangelist for ColdFusion. And he talked with a few people, some that we know, Nolan, and I believe Sean Corfield even made an appearance, who is an older name in the ColdFusion community. But he talks about what's in the current release of ColdFusion and what's coming next for the language.
So I'm trying to figure out, was this like an Adobe-sponsored thing? Mark is obviously working for Adobe now. It's under the YouTube channel SAC Interactive. I don't know what that is. I don't know if anybody out there knows if that's an Adobe YouTube account or just a community one.
Yeah, I'm
here
not
we
sure.
go. A Sacramento-based tech meetup for all things web and mobile related. Okay, I'm guessing that's probably a local user group that Mark is probably, or someone's probably a part of, and so he did as part of that.
Okay.
All right, fair enough.
So this also joins the long podcast group. It's an hour and 43 minutes for you. So download it, listen to it in chunks, and enjoy it however you'd like. And that takes us through the news for the week. Let's jump into our CFCasts updates. This week we had a couple of videos drop in the Up and Running with Quick workshop entitled Entities, The Quick Philosophy, and Step 0 Exercise. Yes, there was a Step 0. So the way that you'll see the Quick workshop coming out from now on is there was a section explaining the new concept, an exercise, and then a solution. So what's nice about these videos is they'll be broken up like that, so you can go through the exercise, see what you're supposed to do, try it yourself, and then watch the solution that we came up with. So also, the building API integrations with Hyper with Michael Bourne is up there. And you should see more up and running with Quit coming out this week. All on CFCasts. I feel like we need a little bumper, like last time on CFCasts.
Previously on CFCast.
Alrighty, let's go talk about some conferences. What conference are you excited for, Mr. Brad?
Into the Box, because it's live in person and not a cat. That's what I want.
Not a cat? Am I missing a joke here?
Yeah, you are. Don't you remember, like in the middle of COVID, there was a lawyer that showed up for court on Zoom, and it had a cat filter his kid had put on, and he's like a cat picture on the screen, and it's like an older guy who's clearly not technologically inclined, and the judge is like, yeah, we need to be able to see your face. He's like, oh, I'm here in person live. I'm not a cat. You're like, we know that, but you need to turn off the cat filter. My wife actually went and bought T-shirts for my kids because they found that so amazingly amusing when it happened. But anyway.
Maybe we'll have to put a link to that one in the show notes now. But yes, we will be live in person in Houston, Texas. This week, if you head over to the Into the Box website, you can get a discount code to use if you would like to reserve a room at the Hyatt, which is where the conference will be. So I believe this is, it just says a discounted group rate of $129. So you can use that code there. And yeah, we're really excited. We've been working on getting the news out to all the people who submitted topics and organizing the schedule. And we will keep you up to date on that. You can buy and register right now for early bird pricing. Head to intothebox.org to get all those details. It's going to be so good. Another conference that we were interested in, which is not live in person, so is a cat? Is that how that works?
Maybe. Okay,
I'll stop. GitLab Commit. So we're big fans of GitLab at Ortus. We like how, it's open source. You can host it yourself. And I think they have a really nice continuous integration offering built right in. So they have a virtual conference coming up August 3rd and 4th. That's just around the corner. And they're going to go through a whole bunch of stuff. They have their schedule there. I noticed one of them had like stretching or yoga in there, which yoga stretch break number 3. So at least 3. But yes, there's a ton of different sessions here. I think there's 4 different stages. Anyways. GitLab Commit Virtual 2021.
I haven't even looked at the sessions yet on this. I saw it.
That's why you didn't know there was yoga.
I know. Scrolling through the speakers to see if I recognize anybody right off. Looks like most of these people, a lot of these people are from GitLab, but I'm seeing people from like T-Mobile, Fox Media. I scrolled past a bunch of ones I recognized earlier. Splunk. Yeah, there's quite a few kind of big name speakers here, or at least speakers from big companies. So
yeah. So if you haven't got to see any like GitLab features, I recommend anything to do with their continuous integration or DevOps stuff. It's really, really cutting edge for them, and you can get almost all of it in their self-hosted platform, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we self-host GitLab at Ortus, and we have clients who self-host GitLab. I mean, you kind of have to stay on top of the updates. It's not like a software as a service where you just use it on the cloud and pay for it. You have to keep things updated. But they have a regular, release cycle. I put in tickets, and they have a community where they fix bugs and stuff. So if you're willing to put up with the kind of the overhead of hosting it, it's basically free, and it's got a container registry in it, and your entire CI/CD kind of setup, so it's definitely something worth learning about.
Awesome. If you are interested in other conferences, our friends at comps.tech have you covered. In fact, you can go search for Into the Box there. We got that added. The first CFML listed conference, I believe, on their website. So
Nice.
that one's fun. Okay, let's jump into some blogs, tweets, and videos for the week. There we go. This is a light week on blog posts. We only have 2, but let's jump through them. The first one from our good friend Mr. Ben Nadal is about printing emoji characters from Unicode code points using HTML entities. Lots of words in there. So this was interesting to me, mostly because I've ran into, and I assume a lot of people have, ran into the issue where if you put an emoji in a file and try to save it, but that file did not want to be Unicode, it gets really mad at you. And so Ben's post here kind of shows how you can use the code points, which is the like hexadecimal representation of the emoji of the character in Unicode. You can use that to print out an emoji on the screen using HTML entities. So he gives a couple ways and mentions that problem of he kind of wants to just keep it ASCII in his file. He doesn't want to put other characters in. And I couldn't help but think of all the times that I've dealt with a database that does not speak, the latest Unicode, and how this could be useful for that as well, storing it as code points.
I see that Ben's comment section of the blog now has a bunch of little emojis I can click on to add to my comment. Coincidence? I think not.
He mentions that right at the top of there that he wanted to show that. So
okay, I scrolled past all the verbling at the top and went straight down to the code examples. This actually reminds me of the Emoji Library that Luis made several years ago, but he took it a little bit different direction where instead of transferring it to an HTML entity that represents, whatever the highest, value is, that Unicode character, he swaps them out with the sort of like placeholders, like the colon, slightly smiling face, in colon, or, whatever. It's like, those common things, and then replaces those back with the actual Unicode characters when he displays them. But I think that still requires that at some point you have the Unicode characters in there, where in this case, you're kind of just relying on the browser to do that, and it's normal ASCII characters all the way to the end. Now, of course, this does, I think, assume that you're inside of a browser, or at least something that it speaks HTML entities, but it's kind of cool. What I've noticed is I can tell when a website has like actual like image fallbacks for the Unicode characters, because I still have a Windows 7 PC that I use for a lot of stuff, and it's old enough that it will show the Unicode characters as just black, font characters, just as though it was a letter in the alphabet. Whereas the newer browsers and newer operating systems will actually like swap it out for the colored image. In places like, the Twitter website will be smart enough to detect I'm on some crappy old version of Windows. It'll just insert an image in its place. Well, like the Hootsuite dashboard, not smart enough, and all the emojis look like absolute crap when I'm on Hootsuite, because they do not account for my older operating system.
Gotta update, Brad.
I know. The problem is my motherboard is too old to update to Windows 10, so I need to just replace the entire computer, but that's far more annoying to deal with.
Or use Linux.
I think that would just have like more problems. I mean, it would be like regular expression. Now I'd have 2 problems.
Rude. I use Linux every day.
I know.
Awesome. Well, we have in the chat a couple of examples of other libraries that can do some things like this. James Moberg posted about CF Emoji Java, which is a ColdFusion wrapper for Emoji Java, and can let you do replace emojis, grab them by their check a text if it's only emoji, parse it to aliases. The aliases like CB Emoji does. And CB Emoji is the other one that we threw in the chat, which will as Brad said, kind of use the Slack or GitHub version where you have colons around the word or phrase, and then it will you can emojify that if that's a verb. So
Emojify. Back in my day, we used emoticons.
that's right. I still do sometimes. It's all good. Okay. I love a good thing about emoji. Emoji's fun. Also, emoji and MySQL 5 are not friends, in case anybody was curious. That's where I've always run into my problems. Okay, one more blog post from Mr. Wildebrun. It says, use this in Quick. So I thought this was a fun one to have on my week here as the creator of Quick. So it's an interesting issue. Quick does a lot of dynamic programming and loves on-missing method. And a ColdFusion, I don't want to call it a quirk, rule, way it works, is that if you want on-missing method to fire from inside an object, you must call it on the this scope. Otherwise,
I call it a quirk.
Okay.
I've never had anyone explain to me a reason why it's like that. It's
there's
always been the way it is.
There's at least 2 blog posts on here if you want to go read somebody's explanation. That helped explain it for Will. So yes, that is a truth, and I've been bitten on that myself to use this in the file. Now, one thing I would say is I try to pride myself on having great error messages in Quick, especially compared to our lovely built-in ColdFusion ORM. And so I'd love a ticket, Will. I'd love a pull request, because we can fix that. I mean, having it just tell you that get product wasn't there, I can have it tell you like, oh, well, maybe you meant to call it on this, and here's some blog posts to tell you why you have to do that. I'd love that. So give me an issue or a pull request. Let's do this.
Yeah, I mean, reading through this explanation that Bill linked to on Stack Overflow is, in my opinion, more of just explaining why it's broken. not offering a reason for it. That's like a personal pet peeve of mine. When you're like, why is this broken? And then someone just explains how it's broken or the manner in which it got broken. You're like, I understand that, but why did you build it that way? Why don't you build it a different way?
Yep, I hear you. I think the other thing that could be updated for sure is making sure all of our docs for Quick list this where it's needed. So, thanks for having that. That will be very useful for people who run into the same issue. And let's get some nice fixes in place from there. Help people along. Thanks, Will. Okay, how about find a job? Okay, there were 2 new jobs listed this week on getcfmljobs.com. Both are remote U.S. positions. They might even be the same one. I didn't actually check that. Nope, they look different. A ColdFusion dev at Remote US. I didn't know there was a town called Remote US. And then a software engineer for ColdFusion, also at Remote, though I think they said where they were on site. Maybe I missed it. Anyways, they're both remote positions. There was one that I came across just in preparing for this. They were looking for a React developer, but under like qualifications they listed experience with ColdFusion and Lucy, and I thought that was pretty neat. Just I usually don't see it put out that way. So we have that one as well, and Ortus still has up on About Us /careers 2 positions, one for our U.S. team and one for our El Salvador team.
It's not that we haven't found anybody. We've actually hired several people recently. We just have a ton of incoming projects, and we're bulking up on employees. We're staffing up.
That's right. So if any of you are looking for a job, those are 5 great positions that you can go apply for. We are excited to see your name pop up in our job applicant list. Okay, ForgeBox module of the week is the Content Box CLI. So this is a command box command that you can install that will help you quickly start up command box from our new version 5 against
Content Box.
Thank you. Startup Content Box version 5. Um, it would be kind of weird to have to install a command box command to install command box. So, yes, Content Box version 5 with
Sure can be done.
4 different CFML engines and 4 different major databases or any combination in between. So this is...
we talked about this the other day. This is basically going to be a replacement for the existing kind of built-in Content Box namespace that's been inside a command box for a while. That one was really only kind of barely fleshed out, and Luis has kind of just started from scratch as a whole new kind of push, which he's doing as a separate module, but you install it just like you would before, and it's just everything's Content Box-CLI, and then the name of the command. We'll probably work at maybe getting this bundled out of the box with command box at some point, but at this point it's kind of bleeding edge as Luis works on it. So it just kind of makes sense to be a separate module that you can, update independently of the CLI.
Yeah, we got the demo of it the other day. Very easy to get started with this wizard. And again, it will give you Content Box version 5, and you can view the latest and greatest stuff that we're working on right now. So that is the Content Box CLI, our ForgeBox module of the week. As for our VS Code tips and tricks of the week, we have an extension called Get History. Now, I chose this one not because there aren't tools to do this in VS Code. There are plenty. There's one built in. You can get one with Git Lens. But I really liked how this one looked. So let me go ahead and share a screen over here. Mostly, I liked this visual view right here. So if you viewed the history of a file, it gave you a nice way to go back. I felt like all the other ones were very cluttered. And then you can right-click on any of these, view that version. You can view a diff with your current, so you can see all the changes one at a time.
I like the diff because I use Git Lens, and I think that works really well just to kind of quickly see like when files were last touched. But I'll wind up typically going back to the GitHub website to actually get a diff between commits. And I wish I could do it a little bit easier directly from VS Code.
Agreed. Yeah, and I love the Git Lens. Like, it will tell me the last commit that was made, but sometimes I got to go back a few, especially if I'm dealing with something in like CI, and I have to see, okay, have like 12 commits that just say testing. What happened back here?
or the last commit is like, applied formatting to code base. And, like, well, no, before that.
Yeah. So that is Git History that you can install and get that nice view. It is a single file, I believe. So if you're looking for like a commit history that's a bit different view, Git Lens can help you with that for sure. But this will give you the history of a single file. So, okay, that brings us to our last section, thanking our Patreon supporters. We are very grateful for all of our Patreon supporters. Like we said, this podcast is now 100% funded because of you, and we're well on our way to supporting ForgeBox and the package repository that it hosts. Supporting us on Patreon also gives you perks. Bronze packages and up get a free ForgeBox Pro subscription and a CFCasts subscription. Access to a private forum on our community website, and a little badge on our community website to show how awesome you are. And as mentioned before, you can sign up now pay for a year and get 10% off of that membership price with all those perks still available. So, Brad, do you want to close us out and thank our awesome Patreon supporters?
I can do that. So big thanks to John Wilson from Synaptrix, Don Bellamy, Eric Hoffman, David Bellinger, Dean Maunder, Gary Knight, Giancarlo Gomez, Jonathan Perrett, Mario Rodriguez, Jeffrey McGee from Sunstar Media, Yogesh Mathur, Joseph Lamry, Ben Liddell, Brett DeLine, Carl Von Stetten, Charlie Earhart, Dan Card, Daniel Garcia, Diego Wisnicki, Edgardo Cabezas, Tom Yannick, Jason Diger, Jeff McLean, Jeremy Adams, Jonas Erickson, Jordan Clark, Kai Koenig, Laxma Tirtrahadi, Leon Suramelis, Matthew Darby, Matthew Clemente, Mingo Hagen, Patrick Flynn, Ross Phillips, Scott Steinbeck, Sean Oden, Stephanie Monge, and Stephen Klotz. Thank you to all of our Patreon supporters that make the podcast possible.
I hope you guys all have a great rest of your Tuesday, and we'll see you in August. Thanks a bunch.
Bye-bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernize.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.